Hi folks, time to take a quick look back at my reading in October. So we'll start with the anthology that I tackled, Andromeda. I did do a review of this on the channel with a quick précis of every story in it, so I'm not going to repeat that. So suffice to say, it was good to read some short stories. And I will just point out the one that I liked the best, which was called Waltz of the Body Snatchers by Bob Shaw, which was set on a world somewhere that humanity colonized some time back, and it was a bit of a religious fundamentalist world, and things like divorce and adultery are seriously frowned upon and can be the end of your reputation, and can even result in jail time. Suicide is super frowned upon as a severe taboo for it. And so anyway, there's this couple that are engaged in an affair. She's married, he's quite a bit younger than her, and they're at it whenever they can get the opportunity, and they've cooked up a plan to get rid of her husband. So on this planet, the penalty for murder is that the consciousness of the person that's been killed is transferred into the body of the murderer. So their body might be dead, but their consciousness can be transferred into the body of the murderer. So they get to live, and the murderer disappears. So there's a convoluted plot that they have, which involves her husband shooting a guy that wants to commit suicide. Her husband, so that the suicide will be replaced by her husband, and then her husband is then dead, and she can get married to the guy. That's the basic plan. But it's quite that's what you think is going to happen, and then there's quite a convoluted, completely different outcome where there's double crosses and triple crosses. I really enjoyed that. It was not a very long story, but it was really well done, I thought, and quite witty. It's good stuff. It was good to read that. So the novels there are 5 novels that I read during October, and I'm going to, as always, rank them mercilessly in reverse order. So I had pretty high hopes for How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. It just wasn't all that interesting. I did finish it. It would have been tempting to quit, I think, 2/3 of the way through it, and I feel like I'm might be missing something, because it did get a good write-up at the time. It's been out for a while. Essentially, it's set in the near future at the beginning. So there's an archaeological dig going on because of the sort of melting permafrost in Siberia, and they find the perfectly preserved remains of a sort of hominid from the distant past. To cut a long story short, that releases a virus or plague, which initially anyway targets children. It's quite high mortality rate, and then it flips onto the next. So it's like a chain of stories involving related characters, either contemporaneously or in the future, sometimes the far future, all with some kind of link to Japan. The author's Japanese American, 3rd generation, but there's quite a lot of Japanese American sort of culture involved in the book. And then so the second or third vignette is set in a theme park, which has been designed to euthanize sick children, basically. So they die having fun. There's a particular roller coaster that they go on where they don't come out, which is a particularly sort of morbid take on it, but it's seen as a kindness, because these children kind of die a pretty nasty death, so they get put down, basically, but you don't really know how, but they go on this roller coaster and then they don't come out. There's because the mortality rate's so high and it gradually begins to affect adults as well, then there's the world's largest growth economy is funereal services, and entire skyscrapers have been either built or converted to house the dead, either pending cremation or burial or something, and being preserved somehow, some way. And there are services that are sprung up around that, around spending time with your recently deceased loved ones and so on, or creating a shrine in a hotel room for your loved one, whatever it might be, and people pay money to stay in it. And then towards the end of the book, there's a sort of generation ship type thing, which is kind of it's taken like 1,000 years or more to get to its destination, and they've been receiving messages from Earth all that time. So there's a bit of a retrospective look at Earth's development in the intervening years. And then this sort of, I suppose, the money shot, if you like, the payoff for what it's worth involves some beings that reminded me of Slarty Bartfast and Magarathea in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. They weren't nearly as funny as those guys, but where you've got these sort of world builders that plant seeds around the galaxy, which spawn intelligent civilizations and so on. And so there is, I won't spoil it for you if you haven't seen it, but there is a neat loop back to the beginning of the book through that sort of lens. So it was okay. I did have a little chuckle to myself when I thought that perhaps the author's name was the best thing about the book, Sequoia Nagamatsu. I thought it was a cracking name, but it was all right, just not that great. I was happy to finish it. So next in the pecking order then, this was much better read, is Atlas Alone by Emma Newman. It's the third of the 4 loosely connected books that she's written, the first 2 of which I really enjoyed, and I really enjoyed this one as well. It's interesting, they're quite different styles. So this one is essentially a cyberpunk novel, but set on a generation ship heading off towards Atlas, which was the planet that was colonized in the first book, Planetfall. And at the end of the second book, and this isn't giving anything away, it mentions it on the back in the blurb for the third one, there were let's just say that book 2 ended with a bang, pretty big bang, a sort of end of the world style bang, and it was not an accident. And so on this generation ship, a few people kind of escaped in the days preceding that world-ending bang, and essentially this ship is run by Christian fundamentalists and very rich people, and then everyone else that's on the ship, which is described as like a flying skyscraper on its side. So it's a big ass ship, and it's got 10,000 plus people on it, most of whom are lower decks types that don't get access to the resources and what have you. And Dee is a sort of hacker type, and she because of her skills is invited to provide some services for some of the sort of wealthy top tier people, and she does, and in doing so she ends up playing a sort of an immersive video game during which a sort of non-playing character is killed, and then he turns up dead in real life. And again, that's on the back of the book, I'm not giving it away. And it turns out that individual was one of the instigators of the world-ending bang at the end of the second book. And so she starts to wonder, can I figure out who the rest are and off them as well via the same means? Because she's got sort of she's a bit like Arya in Game of Thrones. She's got a list of people she wants to off, who she sees as responsible for the death of everything that she knew back on Earth. And she gets some help in this mission that she has from a mysterious source, and there's a bit of a reveal about who or what that is later in the book that I'll leave you to find out. But it says on the back here, Dee is unprepared for the answers that she finds. What she learns will affect the future colony, and she realizes that in order to save humanity, she may have to relinquish her own in the process. So she sort of goes pretty dark in the process of doing this. And the big question is, can she retain some of her own humanity? Does she become just as dangerous as the people that she's trying to off? Is that danger compatible with future colonization of a planet? Yay or nay? I really enjoyed it. I really like Emma Newman's writing. I don't know if she's got more in the works after the 4 that she wrote. I hope she does, because I really like her writing. I'd like to read some more by her. I've got the final book to read now, which is called Before Mars. Okay, next then was Timescape by Gregory Benford. It's my first Gregory Benford. I was expecting kind of hard science fiction. Gregory Benford is or was himself a scientist, a physicist. No great surprise that the 2 protagonists in this book, one in the 2000 and somethings, was it 1998? No, in 1998, that's right. In 1998, and one in 1963, I think, are both physicists of one stripe or another. And the shtick in this book is that in the future, which is now in our past, but it was 20 years in the future when Gregory Benford wrote the book, the climate's going to pot, sea levels are rising, economies are going down the pan, and time's running out basically. And so they want to the character in England, in Cambridge, whose name I forget now, John something probably, is his research involves sending tachyon beams. Because tachyons travel faster than light, they can, in theory, go back in time. So he's trying to send a message, basically in Morse code, back to 1963, which he judges has enough scientific capability and enough time to fix whatever it is that's caused the ecological catastrophe in 1998. And so quite a lot of the story is about tinkering in labs, which on its own might have been pretty boring and dry material, but Benford kind of spices it up with, for the English kind of timeline, quite a bit of background information about the sort of slowly building pressure of the impending apocalypse, it seems, and the general running down of things, which I quite liked. Again, it's quite familiar seeming because it's obviously English. Quite a lot of the personal relationships were interesting. There was a bit of scheming and plotting, and a bit of sort of breakdowns in relationship because of at both ends, because of the time each of the two physicists was spending with their research teams in their labs trying to make this thing work. So one trying to send the bloody messages, and the other one trying to make sense of what they were receiving, and trying to convince their peers and betters, elders and betters, that what they were receiving was in fact a message from somewhere, and it was trying to tell us something, as opposed to just kind of noise or a flaw in their experimental setup or something. So it's kind of science with added human relationships, I think, and it worked pretty well. I enjoyed it, and this is my first kind of outing for a Gregory Benford book. It was a good start. I liked it. And there is a review of that on the channel as well if you want to go look at that in more detail. The next one is Children of Memory. It's the third of the Children of series. It started with Children of Time a few years back, and then Children of Ruin. This is the third instalment. So in the first book, you had sort of a terraforming project gone wrong, and instead of human population being uplifted, the spiders were uplifted, and so you ended up with evolving spiders becoming super intelligent. And then in the second book, there were octopuses on an ocean world, and plus an alien life form on a nearby world, which infected some visiting humans, and then proceeded to kind of consume them in various ways, and ended up consuming the poor octopuses as well, many of them, and in its quest to gain knowledge. Anyway, that all resolved quite neatly at the end of Children of Ruin. And in Children of Memory, we are at that kind of team of the octopuses, the spiders, and the uplifted humans, and the artificial intelligence that's sort of bossing them all, go off looking for colonies formed by sort of generation ships, that kind of second wave colonization that came out of Earth after it had sort of picked itself up. And they kind of figure out where these planets might be, and they go to find one, the name of which escapes me. When they get there, they find a failing colony, basically. They haven't done a good job of, it was imperfectly terraformed when they got there, and they're sort of barely able to hang on. And they arrived with thousands of people in the generation ship, and they're only able to revive a certain number of them because that's all that the planet can sustain. And there's sort of collective guilt over leaving everyone else behind to sort of deteriorate in the orbiting ship. And now sort of visiting octopuses, spiders, and uplifted humans are sort of visiting to sort of observe the local population, and they're sort of just pretending to be from a remote farm or whatever. And there's a strange structure to the book which I didn't really get at the time, although in hindsight it's obvious, but you'd see some of the same events replayed again with slightly different outcomes. It reminded me a little bit of Eversions by Alistair Reynolds, which is a book I didn't particularly like for that structure. Annoyed me a bit. So I was beginning to get a bit annoyed by that structure, but just in time, just about the point where it was going to drive me nuts, it became clear what was going on and why, and I kind of bought into it a bit more at that point. But so I think of the three of these books, this is the one that I probably enjoyed the least. I think I would probably get some value from a second read at some point. It has left a few things kind of stewing over in my head that I wouldn't mind kind of validating or correcting or whatever with a second read. But I'll let that stew for a while and come back to it at another time. I wouldn't mind reading all three, actually. Maybe that's what I should do, because they are good. And you know, he won Tchaikovsky won a Hugo for best series, I think, this year, just recently. And I do think it's really good. I find his work a little bit hit and miss. Didn't enjoy the recent kind of Final Architecture series as much as I hoped I would. The first one was great. The second one was okay. The third one I thought was pretty poor. But I thought these three were pretty consistently good. As I say, this was probably the one that I enjoyed the least. It's still good. It wasn't excellent. The first two I thought were great. This one was pretty damn good, but not as good as those, I don't think. So my book of the month then, a rare 10 out of 10 for me, is The First 15 Lives of Harry August by Claire North, rather, which for which there is a review on the channel. And this is a sort of time travel with a difference. There isn't really any time travel, but it's time's involved. It's time loop story. It's like Groundhog Day squared. So as the title implies, Harry August is somebody who is reincarnated as himself. He relives the same life again and again and again, and he has perfect memory of what happened the previous time. So there are others like him, it turns out. He later finds out. And the sort of premise of the book is, and this happens in the very first few pages, is he's on his deathbed on his 11th life, and he gets a visit in the hospital from a young girl, sort of 8 or 9, something like that, who comes along breathlessly saying, "Oh, thank goodness, Dr. August, I nearly missed you," because he was about to die. "I need to send a message." And she proceeds to give him a message, which he will then carry back to him when he restarts his next life. So this kind of transmitting of messages back into the past, and if you did the opposite of an old person giving a message to a young person, then message would be carried forward in their life. And so that's a sort of exchange of messages going back and forward through time, like that sort of slow motion communication system, which I really liked. And then Claire North's writing is wonderful. I've read a couple of her books now, and I think she's really awesome. I can't wait to read more. The sort of big theme of the story is of friendship. I think there is another guy like him called Vincent who has the same condition slash ability. I don't know how you would describe it, but he also is reincarnated as himself. And the message that Harry got was that the world is ending and it's happening faster and faster every time. So that sort of catastrophe in the future is coming forwards, and it's not clear why. So Harry's job is to figure out, over the course of several lives, figure out what the hell's going on and try to stop it. And that's what he sets about doing. And in the meantime, he and Vincent sort of exchange roles. So in one life, so Harry and Vincent exchange roles throughout the book over the course of several lives. So in one, Harry is a professor and Vincent is a student. In another, Harry is his personal assistant running his business empire. In another, Harry is a lab assistant while Vincent tries to solve some big scientific problem, which may or may not be something to do with the catastrophe coming forwards in time that Harry's trying to resolve. And so they do a dance together, and you're never really sure if Harry's hanging around Vincent because he enjoys spending time with him and kind of loves him like a brother, or because he is suspicious of Vincent's motivations and thinks he has something to do with it. And the same for Vincent. Is he just keeping Harry close to keep an eye on him, or does he genuinely like having him around? And I think it's all of the above. Like I say, her writing is really great. If you haven't read it, then I thoroughly recommend that you do. And if you see anything by her, then I would recommend grabbing it. I certainly will. So that was my my book of the month, and a strong contender, I think, for this year anyway, for book of the year for me. I really enjoyed it, and I'm still noodling away at several aspects of the book, and I've talked to a few people since I read it about it, and sort of expounded at length about how much I enjoyed it and why I enjoyed it and what was making me think so much about it. So I'm certainly an advocate for this book and for Claire North's writing. So what did you enjoy during October? Tell me, I'll be interested to hear in the comments. But otherwise, thank you for watching as always, and until the next video, bye for now.